Marcus Reynolds had learned to live small. Not in the way that meant his life was unimportant, but in the way that meant he didn't dream anymore. At 39, he woke up at 5 a.m. to pack lunch boxes for his 8-year-old son, Tyler, and his 11-year-old daughter, Sophie. He worked construction during the day, honest work that paid the bills and left him too exhausted to think about the life he didn't have. He came home, helped with homework, managed the chaos of a single-parent household, and fell asleep on the couch most nights with a glass of water getting warm on the side table. The divorce had happened 5 years ago. Not dramatically. Not with screaming matches or infidelities that would at least make for an interesting story. Jennifer had simply woken up one morning and realized she didn't want to be married to him anymore. She was kind about it. That was almost worse. There were no villains in their story, just two people who had grown in different directions, and eventually, the distance became too great to bridge. She'd moved to Denver with a new boyfriend, and the kids spent summers with her. Marcus didn't hate her. He didn't love her anymore either. She was just part of a life he used to have. What hurt more than the divorce was what came after, the slow erosion of hope. The way he stopped looking in the mirror and seeing potential. The way he started seeing himself through the lens of failure. He was the guy whose wife left. He was the single dad who couldn't afford the nice house anymore. He was the man who was too tired, too broke, too broken. His friends had tried. God, how they'd tried. Marcus's best friend, David, would invite him out, introduce him to women, insist that he wasn't dead yet. But Marcus would smile politely, exchange pleasantries, and then retreat back into the safety of his routine. Because routine was predictable. Routine didn't involve the vulnerability of someone seeing him and deciding he wasn't enough. That Friday in September started like any other. Marcus dropped Sophie off at her ballet class at the Movement Studio downtown, the one she'd been taking for 2 years. She was incredible, naturally graceful, serious about her craft in a way that made him proud. She'd inherited that from her mother, probably. Dedication. The ability to commit to something and see it through. He always waited in the coffee shop next door, watching through the studio's window. The studio owner, an older woman named Patricia, had given him permission to do this years ago. She understood that not every parent could afford a babysitter while waiting for a 1-hour class. Marcus appreciated her kindness. He'd learned to appreciate these small graces because they kept him from drowning. The coffee shop was called The Blend, a locally owned place with mismatched furniture and walls covered in local art. Marcus came here so often that the barista, a college kid named Jerome, had started making his drink before he ordered. A medium Americano. Black. Simple. On this particular day, Marcus was reading a book he'd checked out from the library, something about building self-esteem. He wasn't really getting much from it, but it felt important to try. To pretend that he was working on himself, becoming better. The door chimed, and she walked in. Marcus wouldn't have noticed her in the way people mean when they talk about noticing a beautiful woman, that shallow, momentary appreciation. Instead, he noticed her distress. She was wearing heels, expensive ones that looked like they were designed by someone who cared more about beauty than comfort. Her dark hair was perfectly styled. Her dress was the kind that probably cost what Marcus made in a week. But her face was crumpled with frustration, and her eyes were glistening in that way that suggested she was seconds away from crying. She was struggling with her heel. The strap had come undone, and she was standing in the middle of the coffee shop, hopping slightly on one leg, trying to fix it without sitting down. It was a small thing, but it looked like it was breaking her. Marcus set down his book. Most people would have just watched or looked away. That was how the world worked now. You minded your business. You didn't get involved. But Marcus's mother had raised him differently, before life had taught him to be cautious. He set down his book and approached her. "Can I help?" he asked, his voice soft. She looked up, startled. Up close, he could see that she was younger than he'd initially thought, maybe mid-30s, with dark brown eyes that were thoroughly exhausted. There were stress lines around her mouth that didn't belong on a face that young. "I can't." She looked down at the heel in her hand. "I can't get it to stay. I have this interview, and I look like an idiot, and I just..." She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't need to. "May I?" Marcus asked, gesturing to her foot. She hesitated for just a moment, then extended her legs slightly, balancing against the counter. Marcus knelt down, his bad knees protesting the movement, and took the heel from her hand. The strap was indeed broken, one of the tiny stitches that held the ornamental detail having come loose and created a domino effect. It was fixable, but not with anything in the coffee shop. "It's the stitching," he said, examining it. "It needs a needle and thread, or maybe some strong adhesive. But even then, it might not hold through an interview." She made a sound that was half laugh, half sob. "Great. Perfect. This is just my luck." Marcus looked up at her. "What time is your interview?" 2 hours, she said, checking her phone. "And these were my lucky heels. My mom bought them for me, and I haven't worn them since." She trailed off, and he saw her swallow hard. "Since when?" he asked, because something in his chest told him this was important. "Since before everything fell apart," she whispered. Marcus stood up. His back cracked audibly. "Come with me," he said. "I'm going to fix them." She looked at him with a mixture of hope and caution, the way you look at someone who might help or might hurt you. Marcus knew that look. He'd seen it in his own mirror. "I'm Marcus," he said, extending his hand properly, like they were being introduced at a party instead of in a coffee shop where he was holding her broken shoe. "Natalie," she replied, shaking his hand. Her grip was firm, and her hands were trembling slightly. "Nice to meet you, Natalie. Come on. I have a workshop. It's not far." He shouldn't have done it. That was what the rational part of his brain was saying. Don't get involved with strangers. Don't invite them to your workshop. You don't know her. You have 2 hours, and you have to pick up Sophie. But his mother had raised him to help people. And something about Natalie's devastation felt familiar. He understood breaking shoes. He understood unlucky circumstances. He understood the terror of facing an interview feeling like you were already defeated. They took his truck. It was a 2008 Ford, reliable but not impressive. She didn't seem to notice or care. She sat in the passenger seat, clutching the heel in her lap like it was a small animal that needed comforting. "Tell me about the interview," Marcus said as he drove. His workshop was only 10 minutes away, a small space in an industrial building that he rented on the side. He did restoration work on furniture and shoes, small jobs that supplemented his construction income. Nothing fancy, but it paid for Sophie's ballet classes. "It's with Harrington Design," Natalie said quietly. "They're a big firm, international. I've been out of the industry for 5 years because I had to, because life happened. And this is my first real interview since I've been trying to get back. If I mess this up, I don't know how much longer I can keep fighting." "Fighting what?" Marcus asked, though he thought he already knew. "Everything," she said simply. "Custody battles. Medical bills. The debt from medical bills. My ex-husband decided he wanted a new life, a new wife, a new everything, and he left me with a daughter and a mountain of debt because apparently, the cancer treatment she had 5 years ago was somehow mostly my responsibility." The bitterness in her voice was sharp enough to cut glass. Marcus pulled into the small parking lot. "You had cancer?" he asked carefully. "Not me," Natalie said. "My daughter. She's doing great now, completely clear, but the fight." She looked out the window. "It took everything I had. Emotionally, financially, professionally. I lost my job because I had to be at the hospital. My marriage fell apart because my ex couldn't handle the stress. And now I'm trying to get my career back while working at a department store for barely minimum wage, and I haven't had anything nice in so long that I panicked about these heels being broken because they were the last beautiful thing I had left." She was crying now, full tears running down her face. Marcus pulled out his handkerchief, an old one, but clean, and handed it to her. He'd been that person before, the one who felt like beautiful things were being stripped away. The one who couldn't afford to fall apart because there was too much depending on you. "Come on," he said gently. "Let's fix these heels." His workshop was modest, a bench along the wall, tools organized in old coffee cans, boxes of supplies that he'd collected over the years. It smelled like leather and wood polish. He turned on the soft light and gestured for her to have a seat on an old stool while he set to work. "I was a designer," Natalie said, watching him work. "Before, I worked for a luxury brand in New York. We did handbags, shoes, accessories. I was good at it. I had a team, and we were creating things that people wanted. And then," she didn't finish, but she didn't need to. Marcus nodded as he carefully, methodically, began stitching the heel back together. He'd learned this work during one of the dark periods after the divorce, when he needed something to do that was productive and required focus. Something that took him out of his head. "You know what I think," he said, not looking up from his work. "I think that person is still in you. The designer. The woman who made beautiful things. Things don't have to work out perfectly for that part of you to matter." "It's hard to believe that when you're drowning," Natalie said quietly. "I know," Marcus replied. And he did know. He knew that feeling. He knew what it was like to be underwater and desperate, to wonder if you'd ever surface. It took him 40 minutes to fully repair the heel. He reinforced the stitching, sealed the joint with a specialized adhesive, and even added a small reinforcement piece that would help it last longer. When he was done, the heel looked almost new. "There," he said, handing it to her. She took it, examined it carefully, and then she looked at him with an expression he couldn't quite name. It was gratitude, yes, but something else too. Something like recognition. "Thank you," she said. "I don't know what else to say. You didn't have to do this." "Yes, I did," Marcus said. And then, because he couldn't help himself, because something was pushing him forward that felt bigger than fear or caution, he said, "And I want you to know something. You're going to get that job. And, even if you don't, you're going to keep fighting, because you've already survived the hardest part. The cancer part. The loss of marriage part. The not knowing how you'll pay for things part. The heel is just a thing, but you're a person, and you're stronger than you think." She stared at him for a long moment. Her eyes were still wet. But there was something different in them now. A spark. "How do you know all that? You don't know me." Marcus thought about lying. About giving her some generic response. Instead, he told her the truth. "Because I've been where you are. Not in the same way, obviously. But I know what it's like to feel like you're not enough. To feel like everything is falling apart and it's somehow your fault. And I'm here to tell you that it gets better. Not faster than you want it to. But it does get better." She stood up and put the heels on. They fit perfectly, and when she stood, she looked different. Taller. More solid. Like she was gathering herself back together piece by piece. "I really should get back," she said, glancing at the time. "I need to shower, change, do my makeup again. Thank you, truly." "Wait," Marcus said. He didn't know what he was doing. This was insane. This was the kind of thing he didn't do anymore. But he found himself saying, "I want to give you something." He went to a shelf and pulled down a small leather journal. He'd bought it years ago, thinking he'd write in it, chronicle his recovery from the divorce. He'd written 3 entries and then stopped. It was beautiful, soft brown leather with gold leaf detailing. "It's a journal," he said, handing it to her. "I've never used it, and I think you should have it. Write down the good things. Write down the things you create. Because I promise you, you're going to create things again. Beautiful things. And you'll want to remember that moment when you did." She took it with shaking hands. "I can't accept this. It's too much." "You can and you will," Marcus said firmly. "Because I'm asking you to. Because I believe in you, and I don't even know you, but I believe in you enough to give you something that matters to me. That's real. Hold on to that." She opened her mouth to say something, then closed it. Instead, she stepped forward and hugged him. It was quick, surprising, and when she pulled back, she was crying again. "What's your last name?" she asked suddenly. "Reynolds," he said. "Marcus Reynolds." "I'm going to remember that," she said. "I'm going to remember you, Marcus Reynolds. Because you just reminded me that good people exist." They exchanged phone numbers, though Marcus didn't think she'd call. Women like Natalie didn't call guys like him. They remembered them fondly and moved on with their lives. That was how the world worked. She left the workshop, walking with her head held higher, the heels clicking against the floor with confidence. Marcus watched her go, and something inside him felt different. Cracked open, maybe. Or healed. He couldn't quite tell the difference. He was quiet on the drive to pick up Sophie. She chattered about her ballet class, about a girl named Emma who could do a perfect grand jeté, about the choreography for the upcoming recital. Marcus listened and responded and held all the normal pieces of his life in place. But part of him was still in that workshop, still seeing the moment when Natalie had gathered herself back together. He didn't know what that moment meant. He didn't know if he'd ever see her again. He only knew that for the first time in 5 years, his chest didn't feel quite so tight. For the first time in 5 years, he believed in something other than survival. He'd believed in someone else, in a stranger's ability to overcome, to be more than the worst things that had happened to her. And, somehow, that belief had begun to heal something in him too.